Hey there, everybody. This is Dave Bensman with Bensman Home Computer Repair, and today I'd like to talk about when it is a good time to get rid of your computer. There are two situations that you might be in where it might be a good time to get rid of your computer. One is if you have defective behavior, if your computer is locking up, if it's slowing down, if you're getting error messages, if it's making some sort of noise, you're not seeing an image on the screen, um, anything like that, that may be a good time to get rid of your computer. I say it may be, it may not. Um, let's see here. So this computer right here is like a typical design of a desktop computer. And what you've got here, this big green thing, that's your motherboard, also known as a main system board. You can see that everything seems to be plugged into it. The processor is sitting under this fan, under a heat sink that's plugged into the motherboard. Your hard drive ends up getting plugged into it. I think looks like it's going under this cord up here. And so if you have a main system board failure, replacing that could be 100, 200 bucks if it's available. It may not be given your model of computer. So if your motherboard fails, replacing that, given that a new computer, a pretty good computer with an i5 processor and 12 gigs of memory can run as cheap these days as $500 or $600. Replacing a main system board for $200 may not be a good idea, depending on how old your computer is. If it's fairly old, say older than 5, 6 years old, replacing the motherboard is generally not something I would advise to do unless you're under an extreme budget, because any of these other components, the hard drive, the power supply, the processor, they could all fail at any time after you spend that money to do that major repair. So now if it happens to be a minor component like a power supply, yeah, that's only 80 bucks or 50 bucks, to replace a power supply if you can do it yourself. And that is something I would advise doing. If you have a case fan that went bad, that's where you'd want to replace a component, a small component. Maybe if you have a hard drive, if you can do the work yourself, these days hard drives are not that expensive. They run about 50 to 100 bucks, depending on which one you get. So, that if you can do the work yourself, replacing a hard drive is not a bad idea. Um, because if the computer then dies, like the motherboard goes after that, then you can just use that hard drive in your next computer. Maybe put it in an enclosure and use it as an external or something like that. So that would be one reason to go is an older machine and a major component failure. That would be a reason to think about pricing new computers. Um, the other one is just sheer age of the computer. If you have a lockup or persistent errors, you have malware on the system, something like that. There's nothing wrong with the hardware. It's just you have a bunch of malware in the system, and you've got a computer that's 6, 7, 8 years old. If you can fix it yourself, then that's always a good way to go. Although you will spend a lot of time doing updates, like if you've got Windows 7 and it's an older copy of Windows 7, you'll spend a lot of time doing updates. But if you can do the work yourself, that would be cheap. But if you cannot do the work yourself, that's when I would think about replacing the machine. Because if you can't do that's going to take a long time. That's going to take to format a hard drive, reinstall the operating system, reinstall all the drivers, all the applications, put in a scanner, rather an all-in-one printer scanner. To do all of that and do all the updates and everything is going to take probably 2 to 4 hours. And if you're paying a technician, hourly, that really does make up a large part of the expense of a new computer. So, older machine, problems with your software, and when I say older, I mean anything over, say, 5 or 6 years. I would think about replacing that. Um, The other thing is your operating system, the age of your operating system. So if your computer's maybe not that old, but your operating system, let's see here, Microsoft Extended Support. So Microsoft only supports their operating systems for a certain amount of time, and after that, they drop them. And so if somebody comes up with an exploit, um, for an operating system, then they will not patch it. If they discover, even if they discover it, they won't put a patch down for it. So here's the Windows lifecycle fact sheet, and if you notice, if we go down here, you'll notice right here, Windows 7 Service Pack 1. It's extended support. Extended support is them patching the operating system. Somebody finds a vulnerability in it, and then Microsoft will release a patch or a service pack, and they'll plug that vulnerability. They're not going to do that for Windows 7 after January of 2020. And a lot of people are like, well, I never go online. Well, if you're using a high-speed internet connection, you're always online. Whether you're surfing the internet or not, you're always online. And if your computer is using is on your network, any other computer on your network is vulnerable to attack if you're using an operating system that is no longer supported by Microsoft. The day like January 15th of 2020, if you've got a Windows 7 machine on your network, your entire network, including every computer on it, is vulnerable. As you can see, Windows 8.1, that's going to go off January 10th of 2023, and Windows 10, I think, is good until 2025. Although they have these like rolling updates. So you want to go to this website right here, and just check your operating system and make sure that it is not going to be left high and dry anytime soon by Microsoft, because if it is, that would be a very good time to get a new machine. If you're using Windows 7, January of 2020, before that, I would get a new machine. Uh, the final reason why it's useful to get a new computer would be if your current computer is not doing something you need it to do. Let's say your current computer is working A-OK, perfectly fine, operating system supported, spinning like a top, but then let's say you want to play a video game with it. Well, a standard bargain basement garden variety computer is not going to play a modern high-tech video game. It doesn't have a video card. A video card would be something that would slot right here. Let me see if I can find a picture of a video card. Yeah, okay. So that's the new GeForce 2080 card. And as you can see, it's $849. Now, all video cards aren't that expensive, but they are all fairly expensive. And you need a video card in order to run video games. So you could plop this, you could, if you wanted to, you could, you could yank the power supply here, put in a new beefy power supply, plop a new video card in there, and as long as your RAM and your processor were up to speed, you could probably be okay with that. But it might just be more cost effective, and it might give you a better gaming experience just to get a new computer. So that's the kind of, you want to look at the requirements for what you're trying to do, and then you want to match the computer to that, and whichever solution is cheaper is really the way to go. Let's say you just got a new camera and you want to take high definition video, and you want to store a lot of that. Maybe you just had a kid or something and you're taking a lot of high def video. These days, even cheap cameras will do high def video, and that stuff eats up hard drive space. So let's say you got a hard drive in your computer and maybe it's a terabyte. Well, I can tell you from experience, a terabyte, because our kid's 9, and as soon as we got a high definition camera, that terabyte hard drive was not large enough to hold all that video. So I had to upgrade. My computer was fairly new, so I just added, like you see here in this computer, I just added a secondary hard drive. But it may be that if your computer is, fairly old, um, and you don't want to fiddle with having 2 hard drives, you may be in a position where getting a new computer with a super big hard drive might be a better way to go. These are all just kind of, cost benefit analysis things. You just look at the cost of what it would cost to upgrade versus the cost of what it would cost to get a new computer, and then you can make your decision, based on that. So those are really the 4 reasons to get a new computer. I tend to check Dell for new computers. That gives me a kind of like a basic idea of what they cost. And then I go to Best Buy, and then Costco, and then I go to, I'll maybe go to Office Depot, and I never take the first price I see. I always go around to the various shops and compare, comparison shop, because you'll be surprised where you'll see a $50 difference on basically the same computer. If you have any other questions or anything like that, all you have to do is call me, Dave Bensman, Bensman Home Computer Repair. If you live in the Memphis area, Cordova, Collierville, Germantown, Millington, you can call me at 901-830-4362, and I can help you figure out, what's wrong with your computer, whether it's worth repairing or replacing. I can definitely do that. If you enjoyed this video, if you will please like it and share it, and if you will please subscribe to my channel, that'd be excellent. And as always, stay safe.